If you are feeling lost right now in any way, shape, or form, this video is for you. The number one way that people lose themselves is when they begin to identify with their struggle and their hardship. Identifying with your struggle can be destructive in many ways, including and not limited to diminishing your self-worth, causing self-doubt, and most of all, limiting you. And I think it's important to note that I'm telling you this today as someone who is not a psychiatrist. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a therapist. I cannot profit or benefit from your hardship. I'm telling you this as someone who has been through it, who is speaking from the heart and is speaking from relatedness and is hoping to help someone with this video. The most important things to keep in mind when trying not to identify with your struggle is learning how to terminate victim mentality. Perceiving yourself as a victim in any situation is the easiest thing to do. When you're feeling weak, when you're feeling powerless, when you're feeling sad, betrayed, the easiest thing to do is to fall into that hole. But today I'm challenging you to rise above. Something I've noticed and seen a lot on Instagram is the idea that telling someone that things could be worse is a terrible thing to say. And while I respect the idea of, and I acknowledge the importance of being okay with how you feel and validating someone's feelings, I also recognize the truth in that statement. Isn't that true? Can't it always be worse? You might find yourself sometimes saying, why am I always the person going through this? Why do my friends have it easier? Why do people that I know not experience the things that I am experiencing? Why am I having back-to-back troubles with my family, with my health, with whatever? I promise you that there is someone out there that is saying the exact same thing about you. Why does she get to have a roof over her head? Why does she get to have an education? Unfortunately, there is always someone out there that does have it worse than you do. Your situation could always be worse. So even try practicing saying a simple phrase like, I feel like I'm drowning right now, but thank you God, or thank you the universe for this roof over my head, for this food on my table. I feel so bad mentally right now, and I'm so upset that this happened, but thank you God for the friends that I have, because it would be so much harder to do this without support, to do this alone. It would be so much harder to do this without a roof over my head. This is the reality. It's sad what you're going through, and I'm not here to invalidate that, but creating space for gratitude in the midst of hardship, in the midst of suffering, is the most freeing thing that you can do. Gratitude will save you every time. I can also tell you right now that feeling sorry for yourself only prevents you from dealing with the reality of this situation. Feeling sorry for yourself or sulking does not change anything in the end. At the end of the day, no matter how many times you sit here and say, I wish things were different, things will not just become different. That is a matter that is in your hands. I will tell you right now that 80% of people in this world are glad that you are struggling, unfortunately. And the other 20% just do not care. It's not your fault that you went through what you went through. It's not. But it is your responsibility, and it's your job to determine what happens next. It is your responsibility to figure out if you are going to be a victim or if you are going to take this pain and transform it and alchemize it into fuel, and alchemize it into growth, and alchemize it into success. That is your decision. And there are so many people in this world that have gone through hell and back and came out successful. So if you sulk and if you don't do anything after this, at the end of the day, the only person you have to blame is yourself. Don't be the person 10, 20 years from now that doesn't do everything that they wanted to do and blames their hardship, because that's not an excuse. The last thing I want to bring up regarding victimizing yourself is the prevalence of romanticizing mental illness in social media that I have noticed, whether it's TikTok or Instagram. I have seen so many posts that normalize helplessness, that normalize depression and not being able to do anything about it. And while I recognize the importance of mental health awareness, I have noticed that there are more videos out there that have to do with how limiting mental illness is and how limiting depression is than there are videos about doing something about it. I feel that a search on TikTok about mental illness should be bringing up more posts about healthy coping mechanisms rather than destructive ones. I feel that the feed that pops up when I search up depression, when I search up mental health, should be more centered on healing and be more centered on okay, I'm depressed right now. What do I do to get out of this? Not things that grow depression, not things that make me more sad. I recognize that it may be a coping mechanism to feel that you are less alone. However, I think that it's important not to normalize the idea that just because you have gone through something, or just because you have been diagnosed or even self-diagnosed yourself with a mental illness, that you can't do anything about it. Your mind will believe what you tell it. If you are fostering a space in your mind that is fed by negativity, that is fed by sad music, that is fed by negative TikTok posts, that is what your mind will attract over and over again. Do you know the saying that's like, the best way to end something is to starve it? If you are experiencing depressive symptoms, if you're experiencing negative thoughts, you need to starve that to the ground. Whether that means deleting sad music off your playlist, whether that means not watching a negative TV show for a while until your symptoms improve, that is what you need to do. Do not read negative posts. Do not read something about something that has to do with what is making you sad. You need to starve it. The next thing I want to speak about is extending yourself grace. While I think it's important not to sulk, I also think it's very important not to antagonize your emotions. The only way to get through something is to go through it authentically and fully. If something happens, allow yourself to cry. That's a release. That's a form of release. That's important. Know that it's okay. Befriend your emotions. You need to tell your mind that you're not scared of what you're feeling, because that is when you take the control. You take the control when you're able to convince your mind that you're okay with feeling how you're feeling, because you know that you will be able to handle it. If you show your mind that because you're feeling sad today, you're going to go numb your pain through substances, through any other form of means, you're training your mind to believe that you are weak, that you can't handle it. And I'm telling you that that will only prolong the healing process. So give yourself grace. Let yourself feel emotions. If that means like having more cheat days, if that means like staying in bed longer, postponing like working on an assignment for a day because you want to go and do something fun, do something that you love, then do it. You deserve it. I think it's very important not to romanticize self-destruction, but I think it's also equally important to give yourself grace. Next, I want to speak about the acknowledgement of your pre-trauma identity. What does this mean? Acknowledging your pre-trauma identity is very important. It is a form of grounding yourself, because despite something terrible might have happened, you were someone before that. You were okay before that. You were happy before this experience in one way or another. There is a version of you that didn't have all of these destructive thoughts in your mind, no matter how long ago it was. That version existed, did it not? And there are many positive things about that person that I hope that you still have inside of you. It is so easy to feel weak and to feel discouraged in the face of trauma. But there is so much power in being able to remember your past accomplishments, your past memories. It's also important to recognize that you have gone through hardship before in one way or another. In whatever shape or form, you have gone through hardship and you were able to move past it, and it grew you into a version of yourself. We are constantly evolving, and hardships are what help us evolve into the next and the next version. One way to do this that I love doing is when something is going on in my life that feels a little out of my control, I literally just open the notes section of my phone and I start listing traits of myself, of who I am, whether that be like, okay, like writing in my notes section of my phone, like, I'm hardworking, okay, I'm this, I'm that. Things that make me who I am despite certain circumstances that are in my life right now. Write a list of positive traits about yourself and capabilities that cannot be taken away from you. This terrible thing happened and I'm so sorry, but recognize that you are still a beautiful person, you are still a hardworking person, you are still a capable person, you have these accomplishments, you have these traits about you that this trauma cannot take away from you. That is so important. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with dialectical behavioral therapy, but one of the most important skills in that form of therapy is called checking the facts. In the midst of hardship, in the midst of trauma, being able to sit down and write down the facts. It is a grounding experience. Something about trauma is that it often clouds your judgment. It causes you to catastrophize when it comes to being able to write down facts, things that you know but aren't able to see right now because there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of bad energy. Being able to sit down and write down, okay, this is who I am and this has not changed, is freeing, is important. And I think that in remembrance of these positive traits, we can remember that our experiences don't define us, but we define our experiences. And remembering your positive traits and remembering how strong you are can help carry you through this. Also, as important as your past identity is, it is also very important to recognize after hardship and after trauma, you are going to become someone that you have never been before. That is kind of the point of evolving, and that is kind of the point of hardship, and that is the point of trauma, to shape us into who we are going to become. With that being said, another really big factor in feeling lost is trying to get back to a version of us that no longer exists. You are trying to become someone that you have never been before as a result of your experiences. And due to that, do not try to become a version of you that is irrelevant to the version of you that is going to pull you out of this. The version of you that is going to pull you out of this is separate from who you used to be. You need to bring light onto the more mature, the wiser version of you. And that's a beautiful thing. That's not necessarily something to grieve or be sad about. You are becoming a better version of you. You are evolving. Hardship transforms us for the better. And how do we extend ourselves to grace into becoming this new person that we are becoming? First of all, acknowledge the negative thoughts that you may be having about this person that you are becoming. Sometimes when we're so deep in our hardship and we're so deep in our trauma, it clouds our judgment. So acknowledge the negative thoughts, acknowledge our distorted perceptions of ourselves, but also acknowledge where this is coming from. Acknowledge the trauma that caused us to feel this way about ourselves. Befriend the negative thoughts and the negative feelings. Journaling is a great tool in this way. Be able to sit back and write down like the specific negative thoughts and feelings you may have about yourself, alongside write where and what specific triggers and what specific events may have played a role in the development of these thoughts. Journaling allows your unconscious mind to release itself so you can differentiate between what am I thinking right now that's rational and that makes sense versus what am I thinking right now that is caused by like trauma and clouded judgment. Allow yourself patience when trying to reconceptualize this new identity. Know that your life is not solely based on survival, but it's based on living. So live holistically, try new things, have new experiences, make new memories. Also, in reconceptualizing this identity that's wiser, that's more mature, that has all this knowledge, foster a place in your mind that fosters growth, that fosters positivity by watching podcasts, watching videos, watching positive shows, listening to positive songs. Foster growth, don't foster destruction. And to be honest with you, post-trauma, you will come face to face with triggers. And there are many that are in your control, believe it or not. And you can minimize them. whether that is deleting sad music. And I know that like listening to sad music can act as a coping skill for some people, but it was so much more helpful not to feed my mind with things that fed negativity and things that made me more sad. Even TV shows, I honestly believe that sometimes when we watch TV shows that are filled with drama or triggers, in the moment we may not believe that it is that triggering, but our mind sometimes absorbs content whether we believe it or whether we realize it or not. Another big trigger can actually be isolation. A lot of times mental illness or sadness in general will tell you to isolate yourself, and I think in those moments it is especially important not to isolate yourself. Some of those moments are the most important, to hang out with friends or even go on a walk or even go to a cafe or be surrounded by people. Isolation can lead to spiraling sometimes. Yeah, another DBT skill is opposite action. Doing the opposite of what your mind is telling you to do when you feel destructive, when you feel sad, is very important. And then, of course, there are negative thoughts. Like I said, journaling is a great way to separate your conscious thought and your rational thought from your unconscious and irrational thought. That's very important, to be able to tell your mind, like, hey, this is what is right, and this is what I'm feeling right now and may not be 100% accurate. Then, of course, there will be triggers that are out of your control, and it is important to understand the best way to respond to these triggers that are out of our control. To my girlies that are in high school or have like talkative friend groups or whatnot, when it comes to traumatic life experiences, people will talk. And to you, I say that one of my favorite quotes, if you are going to talk about what I have been through, bring me to the table so I can tell you what I did with the pieces. I think it's empowering to know that people are talking about you in this way, because you have ammunition to prove people wrong. I think that that is a very powerful feeling, and I can't tell you the satisfaction of being able to go through something that is challenging and that would probably break many people, and be able to turn your life around and be able to move past it and become a stronger person than ever imagined. And then, of course, there are places, just certain places that you have associated with sadness. When you feel ready and when you feel up for it, go to these places. If there's a place that might have been associated with loss or associated with a breakup or associated with painful memories, go with your best friends and laugh in these places, just so you can have in your mind that this place doesn't belong to this trauma. This belongs to me, and I'm going to have not bad experiences but also great experiences. It's simply a place. It will not have power over me. There are many instances where you can simply choose to not let something trigger you. Go laugh in the places that you've cried. Laugh in the places that bring you pain. There are good experiences and there are bad experiences. There are both. When you can understand the importance of gratitude alongside grief, alongside trauma, you will become a lot less fazed by the obstacles that life throws at you. Life has downs, but life has ups, and I think that's very important to recognize. Change is the basis of life. Mediocre people have mediocre lives. This obstacle was put into your life to transform you into such an amazing and such a wise person. There are so many people who have gone through way worse things and have persevered. If something has done damage in your life already, why would you give it the power to do more damage than it already has? I'll tell you that loss and hardship, unfortunately, is inevitable, but so are blessings and so are good things. Recognize that everyone has a story, but I truly believe that it is what someone does with their story that holds the most importance. What someone does with adversity. The present tense version of you and the future tense version of you is more important than the past tense and important than the experiences that you went through. So this is your sign to redirect your life to who you are and who you are becoming. And I hope that this video can serve as a basis for the rest of my videos, and I wish you the best of luck in your healing journey.